Get your hands off my...
Season 4 Episode 5 of Invincible opens with Alan talking with Eve while Mark is having a separate conversation with Nolan. Eve asks Alan if Nolan has really changed, and Alan tells her Nolan saved his life and is now willing to go to war against his own people, so that has to count for something. At the same time, Nolan explains to Mark why he originally came to Earth, reminding him that the Viltrumites will always remain a threat to the planet. Mark responds by saying that after Nolan was taken away on Thraxa, he believed he was dead. Nolan admits he actually wanted to die back then, and almost did, but Alan convinced him it wasn't too late to fix things. He then tells Mark he plans to spend the rest of his life making up for everything he did, and this war is part of that. Nolan asks Mark to join them in the fight, and Mark, worried about what would happen if the Viltrumites came to Earth, says he doesn't really have a choice. When he asks when they are leaving, Nolan tells him the trip to Telescria will take 2 weeks, so they need to leave as soon as possible. Nolan later speaks with Alan and asks him to go find Tech Jacket. After that, Nolan and Mark briefly talk about Debbie, with Nolan saying he owes her an apology. In the next scene, Nolan arrives at Debbie's house. He notices there's no signal that he is at the door and is about to leave when the door suddenly opens and Debbie is standing there. Nolan apologizes for everything he put her through, explaining that even though he is nearly 1,000 years old, the 20 years he spent with her made him feel human. Debbie is still furious and tells him that what he did can't be fixed. She also points out that just 2 months after leaving her, he had Oliver with Andressa. Nolan tries to defend himself by saying Andressa was a mistake and that he didn't love her, adding that he still misses Debbie. That only makes things worse, and Debbie angrily hits him, injuring herself in the process. While bleeding, she asks if she was ever just a pet to him, and Nolan tells her she never was. Debbie then orders him to leave her house, and he quietly walks away. The scene then shifts to Tech Jacket in the middle of a fight, where she defeats her opponent in an impressive way. Right after the fight, her father tells her that Alan has come to see her. Alan explains the situation and invites her to join the war against the Viltrumites, and she agrees. Alan then shares a brief moment with her father before leaving. Back on Earth, Debbie talks to Mark, telling him Nolan already took everything from her and now he's trying to take Mark too. Mark explains that he's not doing this for Nolan, but because it's their best chance to stop the Viltrumites. Oliver then walks in, wondering why they're sitting in the dark, and is told that Nolan was there. He gets angry that Nolan came and left without seeing him, and decides he wants to join the fight as well. Mark is hesitant at first, but Oliver insists, saying he wasn't there to help before and doesn't want to make that mistake again. In the next scene, Mark, Eve, Paul, Oliver, and Debbie share a quiet meal together like a family. After that, the focus shifts to Art, who is clearly uncomfortable when Nolan suddenly shows up and invites him out for a drink. Art is shocked to see him again, especially noticing his worn-down appearance. During their conversation, Art brings up Oliver, and Nolan says he already has enough to deal with and doesn't want to mess Oliver up the way he did with Mark. Nolan also asks about Paul, and Art explains that Paul has been good for Debbie and the kids and has helped bring some happiness back into her life. Art then says he has to leave because he has work the next day. Nolan tells him that if he survives the coming months, he will let Art design anything for him, but Art responds that he only makes suits for heroes now. Later that night, Mark and Eve are lying in bed, talking about how they first met. Their conversation shifts to Robot and Amanda, wondering where they are and what happened to them, and Mark reassures Eve that they will find a way to bring them back. Mark then asks Eve what she was about to tell him earlier before Nolan and Alan interrupted, but she brushes it off and says it was nothing. As they are about to sleep, Eve quietly calls his name and tells him not to die. The next day, Mark and Oliver say their goodbyes to Eve, Paul, and Debbie. Back on the spaceship, Nolan grows impatient, feeling like they are wasting time waiting for Mark. Soon after, he's told that Mark and Oliver are approaching. When they board the ship, Oliver finally comes face to face with Nolan. Nolan is upset, saying Oliver could die in the war, but Mark steps in and explains that it was a family decision for Oliver to come. Mark also reminds Nolan that Oliver used to look up to him, and this could be a second chance to make things right. As the ship begins its 2-week journey to Telescria, the scene briefly cuts to Cecil, who notes that this is the first time in 20 years that Earth has been free of Viltrumites. On the ship, everyone is told to spend the time bonding, but Oliver keeps his distance from Nolan. Alan later asks Mark what's going on with Nolan, noticing that he has been acting strange since returning from Earth. While they are talking, Tech Jacket suddenly rushes in, saying her suit sensors have detected something wrong with the ship's engine core. The crew quickly starts evacuating sections of the ship, and Mark realizes that Nolan and Oliver are missing. Just as they try to warn them, the ship explodes. After the explosion, Mark searches through space and eventually finds Oliver. As they regroup, Mark suddenly senses something else, and it turns out Conquest and other Viltrumites have arrived. Conquest tells Mark this is what happens when he doesn't finish what he started. Oliver immediately attacks, while Mark is engaged by another Viltrumite. Conquest nearly crushes Oliver's head, but Nolan arrives just in time and clashes with him in a brutal fight. Mark joins in to help Nolan, while Tech Jacket struggles after her suit gets damaged, forcing Alan to step in and support her. During the battle, they realize more Viltrumite forces are on the way. Nolan helps Oliver understand how to breathe properly in space as he begins to lose air. Oliver drifts away, trying to recover, but Conquest appears behind him and moves in to attack. At the last second, Mark intervenes and saves him. Mark then grabs Conquest by the neck and refuses to let go, trying to choke him out. Conquest fights back violently and slashes Mark, tearing into his stomach, but Mark still refuses to release his grip. While this is happening, Nolan and Oliver try to locate them. When they finally find Mark, he's already badly injured. In the final scene, Thetis speaks with a leader, telling her she made the right decision since their ship is no match for a Viltrumite cruiser. He orders her to return to Telescria and explains that with a mole among them, they can't afford to wait any longer. He declares that the coalition of planets has been in conflict with the Viltrumites for far too long, and now it is time for full war. The episode then comes to an end.